Several years ago, David Morrow, a TV producer and writer, wrote a book entitled Why Men Hate Going to Church. Morrow concluded that church is for women, children, and wimps. Why is church such a turnoff to men? Well, Morrow has several explanations. Men are not very good listeners. Males tend to be more visual than auditory. So men are simply not as good at listening as women are. My wife tells me that all the time, but I don't listen to her. And you have to admit, church involves a lot of listening to sermons and to prayers and to scripture readings and things like that. Moreover, men are not particularly good public singers. Males will sing in the shower, and males will sing in the car when they're driving by themselves, but men are very self-conscious, for the most part, about singing in public. And church involves a lot of corporate singing. And then men, according to Morrow, don't like to touch other men. Oh, we'll greet one another, we'll give a handshake or something like that. But sometimes church requires you to hold the hand of a male or hug a male. And a lot of men are really, really uncomfortable with that. And finally, a lot of men don't like to dress up. People who wear a suit and tie every day of the week would like to wear something more comfortable on their day off. And people who don't have to wear a suit and tie during the week end up having to put one on to come to church, and they feel incredibly awkward in clothes they're not used to wearing. And it seems also an awful lot of effort to go to dress up for such a short period of time, just a couple of hours on Sunday morning. That's off-putting to some men, according to Morrow. So Morrow concludes that going to church is the spiritual equivalent of going to a chick flick. Although he goes on to say it's not really the equivalent of just going to a chick flick, it's the equivalent of getting dressed up to go to a chick flick. Morrow has some suggestions for how church can be more interesting to males. He says, well, first of all, you could divide the service into 4 12-minute quarters with a 10-minute halftime break for bathroom use and snacks. You could replace communion elements of bread and wine with beer and pretzels. He suggests that maybe you could encourage men to high-five or headbutt one another when passing the peace. Morrow thinks that we could have fewer potluck suppers and more church barbecues and cookouts. That would be helpful. And then he suggests replacing girly man hymns like "They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Love" with more manly man type hymns like He Will Rock You." Morrow's work is entertaining, but it does highlight a problem. There are aspects of worship practices that do not appeal to all men. But I would argue that it's not simply worship practices that are male unfriendly. There are also biblical ideals that are unappealing to males. I can see where Morrow gets his opinion that the Christian faith is for wimps. After all, look at what the Apostle Paul says in his statement in Galatians chapter 5. Paul writes, "By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things." Those characteristics of the Spirit-filled life, according to Paul, may be valued among women. So, for example, many women strive to be loving and kind and patient. Faithfulness and gentleness have traditionally been feminine goals, and joy and peace are valued by most women. But the so-called fruit of the Spirit fly in the face of what it means to be a man in America in the 21st century. I mean, after all, can you imagine a coach saying, hey, let's play Myers because he is really peaceful and gentle? Or how about an employer saying, Myers, I've decided to promote you because you are really loving and kind? Or how about the guys at the local gym saying, I admire Myers because he is really faithful and so full of joy? Now, those traits aren't what people value in males in 21st century America. Our world values males who are competitive, not loving and kind. Males who are critical, not joyful. Males who are aggressive, not peaceful and gentle. Males who are ambitious, not patient. And we pay obscene salaries to professional athletes and CEOs and movie stars who are the most competitive, the most aggressive, and the most ambitious. Through advertising and TV shows and movies, we encourage men to be ruthless and judgmental and arrogant. That is the only explanation for why Donald Trump's The Apprentice is so popular. Today, success is defined as being in a powerful enough position to be able to say to someone else, you're fired. So Paul's fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control could not be further from the 21st century American male ideal. But I guess my question is, was it any different in the first century? Was it any different in Jesus' day? Was it any different in Paul's day? Haven't these ideals always been countercultural? And that's why I would argue, I would dispute Murrow. The Christian faith is not for wimps. Because the Christian faith values a type of male that is not the norm of society. It never has been, and probably never will be. So my thesis is that the 60-40 split in the church may be due to the fact that it's easier to be a Christian woman than it is to be a Christian man. Now, I don't mean to say that it's easy being a Christian of any gender, but my point is that Christian ideals are traditionally feminine values. So being a Christian female is not as countercultural as being a Christian male. And there may be fewer men in the church simply because not all men are up to the challenge of being a Christian man.